Most ICM photographers point their camera at woodlands or the coast, but after many years of shooting ICM, I've discovered dozens of other subjects that work just as well, many of which people never even think to photograph. This video is packed full of ideas that might completely change the way that you look at ICM, as well as plenty of tips. This isn't a quick list. It's designed to be a resource that you can come back to whenever you're wondering what to photograph next, with sections that you can choose to dip in and out of. Just click on the chapters at the bottom of the video to choose the different ideas, but be sure to watch them all as they do contain tips. Part 1 is structures. Architecture is probably one of the most overlooked ICM subjects. Long vertical movements emphasise height, while gentle horizontal movement simplifies repeating windows into painterly patterns. Turning your camera can also create intriguing and circular results. Modern buildings can be quite wonderful for their colours, shapes, materials, extra design features, plus of course plenty of windows and reflections. Many of these were taken around Newcastle upon Tyne's centre, a part where there are countless newer modern buildings. Admittedly, I do get some strange looks waving my camera around, but I kind of just smile politely. My first tip for this section is to look for bold colours and contrasts, such as these blue buildings that had red iron girders going up them. But colourful buildings aren't just in cities. These ones were taken at the village of Amble on the Northumberland coast. Using a variety of motions gave me different results, from straight up or down, to turning my camera in a circular motion for this one. This building is actually red, but I also quite liked it rotated and changed to yellow. Whilst by the coast, it's worth keeping an eye out for beach huts too. They're colourful enough already. You just provide the movement. Not strictly architecture, but I won't tell anyone if you don't. Older buildings are often full of character and charm. These are from the Central Arcade right in the centre of Newcastle. I think it's a combination of details and light that appeals to me and holds my interest in these ones. Most people have a few bridges somewhere nearby. If you can get good angles to make the most of these structures, they are worth a few minutes of your time. If not, then maybe the river they are crossing could make a good subject. Even better than older buildings are castles. These few were taken in the middle of the day in bright sunshine on Holy Island, off our northeast coast. An ND filter and a polarizer helped with this. We are so lucky to have an abundance of castles in our area. And this next one is Walkworth Castle. We weren't visiting it specifically, but just driving past, and pulled over at 2 different spots for 5 minutes. One by a river, and one with a field as a foreground. Although the field creates fantastic textures and colour over the whole image, which is a bonus. I think my preference are the river ones, and that might have something to do with all the lovely reflections. Libraries or bookshops can be interesting too. These were taken at a very well-known bookshop in Alnwick, Northumberland. You just never know what you might find inside some buildings. I must have spent a good half hour trying to photograph this structure of lights which formed a kind of ray of sunshine above the bookshelves. The lines of neon lights create gorgeous shapes with endless possibilities. Sometimes I take ICM photos as a passenger in a car if I spot something interesting. Michael has learned that if I suddenly shout "stop," it's usually because I've seen a photograph. These industrial buildings near Blythe were snapped as we drove past. I think they look quite eerie. Plus this windmill in South Tyneside, proving that you don't have to spend ages at a location. I'm sure most cities have their war memorials nearby. There were a few too many people around the actual monument where this one was, so I simply photographed the poppy wreaths instead. Lighthouses come in so many forms, and every time I photograph our local one at Whitley Bay, I get something different. These first two were taken on a snowy winter's afternoon from a car park, and we just got lucky with the colours in the sky, which certainly helps to set it off. The last one of St Mary's Lighthouse was actually taken miles away at Seaton Sluice up the coast. I used a longer lens and a longer shutter speed of 1 second with an aperture of f/16. I rested the camera on a wall and focused on the lighthouse, holding the camera still for around about a half a second before moving it in a diagonal, sweeping downwards motion, which is why you can see the structures fairly well while still getting the painterly look. I've only just started trying this technique in the last year, and it's something that I will be trying a lot more. I did use a similar method for the first snowy lighthouse scenes as well. This next mini lighthouse on a pier is located at Amble. I do seem to be giving you a tour of the northeast. I took a different approach with this one, making the most of the ability to photograph the pier with water in front of it. The railings and the candy cane striped lighthouse helped add interest. We often get told to follow the lines of architecture or landscapes when using ICM. And for some of these I tried swirling my camera as if it was swirling around the lighthouse. It was a surprising amount of fun to try this out, if you don't get dizzy. There are so many other ideas of structures to photograph, and I'm keen to try them all. Here are just a few more suggestions for you to try. The one I'm most keen to try is stone circles, but there's also churches, staircases, monuments, statues, tents, market stalls, fairground rides, historical houses and museums. Part 2 is people. People are everywhere, even when you really hope that they wouldn't be. It's hard to escape them, even in the countryside. So we may as well photograph them, and using ICM adds a whole new dimension to portraiture. This is actually my partner Michael doing his wildlife photography. He's my wildlife. I've even tried this on myself with great difficulty. This one is 2 ICMs of myself merged together. I absolutely love photographing musicians. And I only tried using the ICM approach with a band for the first time last year. We were camping at a local festival where there was a group playing that I was very keen to see and photograph. The singer also dresses up beautifully and dances a lot, making her the perfect subject. She has a beautiful voice too. I had a fantastic time taking these and definitely plan to photograph more musicians and performers. I'm sure you'll agree that the singer looks very ethereal, dancing away here. I also thoroughly enjoy a bit of street photography once or twice a year. And when you're moving the camera around so much, people think that you aren't really photographing them. so that makes it a little bit easier. Fortunately, blurry photography makes everyone look wonderfully anonymous. Although I do ask people when it's appropriate, such as this lovely lady with her umbrella, who happily waltzed towards me a handful of times to help. Busy city centres are great for this sort of thing, especially on a weekend. Rainy days can work well too, with wet pavements adding extra interest alongside the umbrellas. Quirky backgrounds like this one can be great places to hang around, just waiting for people to walk through it. Or even graffiti-coloured walls. Or keep your eyes peeled for colours that will shine through in your photos. This lady didn't want her face in the photos, so I made do with blocks of colour from behind. If you're in town, then keep an eye open for markets and shops, especially with colourful items. Fruit and veg stores can be great for colour, or clothes shops. Sometimes it can be the window displays that are most interesting. Back to people. Sports can be another great time to photograph people. I've never set out to photograph people in sport, but when I come across them, I do make the most of it. These ones were taken on a local river, where people were on various boats, kayaks and paddleboards. Sport is yet another avenue to pursue with endless of possibilities, such as ice skating, cycling, football, running, boxing. Movement, photographing movement, what could possibly go wrong? I've not tried ICM studio portraiture yet, but I will get round to it one day, especially as we can add in coloured lighting. Part 3 is transport. Anything that moves is fun, but even parked vehicles can create wonderful abstract shapes. This is something that is easily accessible to most people, even looking out of your window. Boats come in a variety of colours, shapes and sizes, which makes them interesting to photograph. If you live near a river, you might just come across some smaller boats, like these ones moored up on an evening. That extra light dazzling on the water's surface really helps make the image work for me. Harbours offer even more options, where you can photograph a whole collection of boats for an abstract landscape scene, if you can't single one out. These were taken up at Amble and are so different to the next ones of a single boat on the river. I got lucky with the colours in these, with the blue boat and the yellow crates in the foreground. I tried to move my camera in a gentle horizontal waves, following the boat's movement to capture these, using a shutter speed of around about 1 second. We have a visitor attraction near us called Beamish Museum, which contains several older vehicles, from steam trains and their coal wagons. Beamish also has a few interesting old buses and trams. One of my favourite all-time long exposures that I've taken is this one taken on an open day at Tanfield Railway, made all the better with the inclusion of people dressed in historical costumes. The falling snow and a little monochrome editing. It makes me feel like I've stepped back into history. I just wish that I'd also taken a full ICM image to get movement across the whole scene instead of just the people in the snow. Michael and I are both motorbike lovers, and this was one of his bikes. This second one is an ICM of a photo of an old bike hanging on our wall. I enjoy the colour on some of our local buses. They can make for some fab abstract images, as do emergency vehicles such as this abstract police car. I'm sure there are plenty of other forms of transport around to capture, such as planes, military vehicles, bicycles and working vehicles such as this bright yellow one, and also a few ferries. Part 4 is creatures. One of my recent projects involves photographing my pet praying mantises using longer ICM exposures, but using flash at the start of the exposure, then moving after the flash has gone off. This freezes everything at the start, whilst that movement gives a nice blur. Not easy with a live insect at macro level. It took a lot of practice to get it right. I was thrilled that one of my first ones was awarded a gold with the Guild of Photographers, which is very hard to achieve. And these are my favourites from this project. I've never photographed typical pets using ICM. Mind you, anyone who knows me knows that I don't do what is typically expected. I did get to spend some time photographing some horses in a field earlier this year and was practicing the longer ICM method of holding the camera still for the first part of the exposure and then moving partway through. The horses were mostly stood still in these. I tried various movements, often choosing to sweep horizontal in the direction that the horse was facing, but also chose to create some with an upwards movement. This is one of my favourites and the type of look that I'm trying to achieve more often. The second half of the exposure has left a texture over the horse and the whole image, which I really like, leaving it looking quite painterly. That same day there were a bunch of chickens in the farmyard, next to the horses, and of course I had to try a little ICM with them. But they were running around all over the place, a bit like headless chickens, and I couldn't keep up with them. Other than these creatures, I've not explored photographing other animals with ICM yet, but have tried with some birds, like this dipper in a river. One of the hardest subjects with this technique, as it was constantly in and out of the water, and I never knew where it was going to pop up. My other bird ICM images are more as part of a wider scene, with flocks of birds on the sand or in the water, and I really think they make scenes work. There are plenty of other creatures that you could try, such as zoo animals, fish at an aquarium, swans and ducks at a local pond, other farm animals like cows, sheep and pigs, not to mention the more conventional cats, dogs and parrots. If you think some of these were strange, wait until you see what else I photograph. Later, I'll show you probably the strangest ICM subject I've photographed. Part 5. Still Life. Still Life ICM is probably the most accessible genre that everyone can try. It includes items from around your home, but could also be in your shed, garage or garden. Equally, you can find some stunning still life subjects on a visit to the shops, a trip to a museum, or historical houses. Meaning this is a massive category with endless variety. Despite enjoying still life photography for a few years now, I have done very little ICM still life at home, but it's on my radar now. These dried sunflowers had been patiently waiting to start in photos for ages. I thought their structure and details might work in a simple setup with a vase. I mostly used an up or down movement for these. Then I swapped to a single sunflower and I tried various movements, including slight rotation of the camera. I do keep a few dried flowers at home, including these honesty seed heads, which are placed on some rusty metal for this shoot. This one was a little Halloween still life setup. that I tried. I'm not that sure that they really worked, but not everything we try works well. And that's okay. We learn from it. Still life isn't just about creating sets though. It can be about anything around the home really, such as this ornament. In the second version, I included an ICM of this along with an image of a gel print in camera as a double exposure, and I prefer this one. It's worth exploring all the rooms around your home and just trying out items to see if they work. These 3 wonderfully geometric ICMs were of some window blinds, and this image is part of a duvet cover. In the kitchen, these bottles gave an intriguing result, and bags of fruit produced images bursting with colour. Apparently, some mammoth tusks have made their way into my kitchen drawer. Maybe they're just tongs. Upstairs offered numerous colourful choices. Clothing next to a clothes rail pole helped me to create fabulous arty abstract images. If you have a shed, garage or garden, then you will have an abundance of other possibilities. I had fun with this bright blue gas camping bottle with its red cap. Would you have guessed what these were? Michael's motorbike also offered lots of options close up, and here are just 3. And who knew hosepipes could have artistic ambitions? Or the outside of a window. I love all those fizzy, sparkly swirls from the patterned glass. I'm sure there are copious amounts of other things that could be captured around the home. Vintage objects or antiques, food, flowers, tools, wheelbarrows, camping gear, watering cans, old windows, garden chairs, lawnmowers, boots, shoes, clocks, jewellery, utensils, feathers, light fixtures. You can also find some very unusual items at museums, like these few from Beamish Museum, or at markets, craft fairs, garden centres, antique fairs, or Christmas markets, which have plenty of options. And if you're out and about, then keep your eye open for colourful or contrasting items that might work. My favourite section is still to come, and shockingly, it's not even the next one, which is botanicals. You might actually get better results from visiting your local garden centre rather than a nature reserve. Look out for structural plants such as ferns or aloe vera, hostas or grasses. Try getting in close or moving away for variety. If your backgrounds are too messy, then maybe try moving some cut flowers or potted plants indoors to give yourself less busy options, keeping your subjects as the stars of the show. I moved these astrantia indoors and photographed them on my phone using a slow shutter app. These weeds in our garden work nicely for me against snow, and another set looked like fire when the sun hit them, but not the fence behind. Last year I tried using ICM with flash on flowers, much the same as with my praying mantis project mentioned earlier. Using this shutter drag method of flash at the start of the long exposure, then moving the camera to create some ghostly flowers against the sharp ones that the flash had already froze, or a colourful hazy effect. This works really well against black. You might need some extra lights on your flowers following the flash though. Floral ICM also works nicely as part of a wider scene or a landscape, such as these daffodils at sunset, or the following bluebells in some woodlands. Cherry blossoms in trees work well, especially with the sky as a background. This is another subject where I've tried holding still for a split second and then moving. That leads me onto trees. With such an abundance of blossoms, it is well worth photographing them if you can isolate them from interfering backgrounds. If you can't, then you can try going more abstract with larger sweeping motions and see how they turn out. I often find myself photographing just a section of the tree to eliminate any distracting elements and keep all of the attention where I want it. Trees must be right up there in the top 2 most frequently photographed subjects using intentional camera movement. I can understand why. They are what I started with myself years ago, with the typical straight up or down motions, creating stripes of colour. Now I tend to experiment much more with my technique and movements, but still find trees hard to resist. Other than cherry blossom trees, my favourites to capture are any trees amongst bluebells for the gorgeous colour combination. I also love photographing trees in the winter, without their leaves and a sprinkling of snow. They can remind me of drawings or paintings. There are plenty of other botanical options, such as berries, fungi, leaves, and seed heads, and many that I have yet to explore. Part 7 is fabrics. Some of my favourite competition images came from simple materials such as voile and fur laid out on the floor and photographed using a slow shutter speed. The voile creates semi-transparent washes of colour which can appear like hills or other landscape structures. Fur can look like grasses or weeds. And strips of white packaging material can look like mist, clouds, or waves once movement is applied. You can create abstract mountains, beach scenes, or other works of art depending on the materials you choose, how you arrange them, your chosen aperture, shutter speed, and movement. Once you start trying this, you can easily become addicted to it. Using materials with patterns adds a whole new element, such as this stripy fabric. Or you can swap in a macro lens and use small pieces of fabric like ribbons. Do check out my other videos where I show you my approaches to using ribbons. I'm sure there are many other fabrics that will work with ICM, and it's certainly worth experimenting to see. Try out curtains, nets, cushion covers, bedding, and scarves. A trip to the local charity shop can yield some good amounts of fabrics. Part 8 is art. Art can be such a fun subject to capture with this technique. Even better if you can create some of your own. If not, maybe you can persuade some kids from the family or friends to create some that you can use. The good news is that your painting doesn't have to be perfect. You're about to blur it anyway. Using tracing paper or baking parchment to trace shapes can help a bit. Even colourful geometric shapes can work. Sometimes I use watercolours and paint very simple scenes, maybe the occasional trees like these few. It can be very relaxing and I enjoy the whole process. But you can use any art form from crayons, pencils, felt tips, any paint really. Alternatively, if you do not wish to produce art to photograph, you could try cutting shapes of bold colours. There is something so satisfying about combining your own art with your photography. It's an element you'll see pop up in future videos too, including one about multiple exposures. Another idea I tried was painting some bright, colourful abstract feathers. This gave me totally unique images that nobody else has. And that's the bonus of creating your own art to use. Some galleries allow people to take photos. If you have permission, then maybe try creating ICMs of sections of a painting, or maybe even graffiti. If you really want to try these ideas but don't want to create art, then some other options would be trying ICM with wallpaper, or wrapping paper, craft papers, curtains, and materials with patterns. Part 9. Glass. And possibly my favourite one as well. It's been in the news this last week that our National Glass Centre is closing. I thoroughly enjoyed visiting a few months ago and still haven't finished processing all my ICM images. Now, I could have included these in the still life section, but there are so many that I felt they deserved a section all of their own. Glass can be tricky at the best of times, but illuminated by so many bright lights can make it even harder. I used a circular polarizer and it helped enormously. Another tip is to carry a small portable diffuser. They can sometimes help to block out any dazzling light. But sometimes you just have to embrace those lights when they are out of your control. And I actually don't mind the light streaks in this unusual vase. I think they add to the image. I came across an oval-shaped white piece of glass which had a concave red-shaped area set against a white backdrop. And I had a lot of fun with this. I almost wish I had bought this gorgeous purple vase to use in my still life photography. It was a favourite. The Glass Centre has a shop selling some incredible pieces, which they were happy for me to spend half an hour photographing. And this is probably the closest I've ever come to wanting to empty my bank account on glassware. They were set up against a window with lots of price tags around them, so I had to get in closer with a macro lens and use small movements to make the most of them. I love these images of various mask-like glass sculptures, and a few with penguins and owls. I rounded off my visit by photographing a few more vases. The centre closes for good in a few days, and I'm still hoping that I can make it back to take more photos. Attractions such as dedicated museums and centres like this can really open our eyes to new things that we never photographed before. A few random subjects didn't really fit into the categories above. Things such as lights at night, roadworks, fairground rides, stained glass windows, fairy lights, signs and instruments. That's my ICM journey so far, and I'm dedicating more time to this technique than to most others lately, so you will be sure to see more. Once you start looking at the world through ICM, ordinary objects just stop being ordinary. If you have any other extra suggestions or ideas that people can photograph using ICM, then do please add them into the comments. It will help to make this a collective ICM resource for everyone. Thanks for watching.